I dug into this Arizona report, came away with some interesting data. Here are some major concerns I have from the audit of the 2020 election in Arizona. Some quick numbers here on what they found. They found 23,300 roughly mail-in votes from people who are not residing at the address they mailed in the vote from. Hold these numbers in your head for a moment. About 23,000 mail-ins, address didn't match up, okay? 17,300 duplicate ballots, 2,000 roughly voters who had moved, 2,300 who voted but in Maricopa County, but the audit was in Maricopa County, but moved out of Maricopa County, and about 3,432 more. I'm losing track. Oh, it's going to come up next. I'm sorry. Hold on to them. Just keep in mind the 2,300 that voted moved out of Maricopa County. So again, this is important. I explained to you last week, we could have a validity issue here. Don't confuse reliability with validity. Something can be reliable, but be reliably wrong, like a scale. If it's 10 pounds off all the time, it's reliable. If you're 120 and it weighs you at 130, you know you're 120 because it's 10 pounds off, and it's always 10 pounds off. But it's not valid. It's not measuring your weight. Your weight is 120, not 130. So if an election is reliable, it's always 1% to 2% off because of fraud. It's still not valid because the guy who won, if they won by less than 1%, didn't win. You get it? It's not a valid measure of an election outcome. Does everybody understand that, Guy? That makes sense? I just want to be sure everybody's grabbing this here. Reliability and validity aren't the same thing. Now, here's the problem with that. We may have a validity issue here with those numbers. So keep in mind some of them. Of the 23,000 mail-in voters that didn't reside at the address, there may be an explanation for 15,000 of them who moved but stayed in Maricopa County. So it wasn't a duplicate. They may have just gotten their own address wrong, or they may have moved. Now, having said that, that still leaves thousands more potentially unexplained at this point. We'll see. I'm still digging through the report. But listen, I'm not here to give you fairy tales about anything. I'm here to tell you the truth. 23,000, it appears 15,000 may have an explanation, so we'll see. But thousands more may not. And that's what interests me, and I don't understand why anybody would run from this. Here's another one. 1.7 thousand of those 23,000 went elsewhere in Arizona. So again, their ballots may still be valid because they were still Arizona voters and they maybe voted with their last address instead of the other one. But it doesn't necessarily mean those votes were fraud. Keep in mind, out of the 23,000 mail-in ballots that from people not residing at the address, that's not their actual address anymore, only 33% of them were Republican votes. So again, I just want you to keep this in mind. We can't do an audit and then ignore the audit. That doesn't make sense. But there are still thousands that are potentially unexplained here. And Arizona, this is just Maricopa, by the way. Arizona's got some explaining to do because people deserve an answer. I mean, I don't understand why facts and data bother people. What's so troubling about that? If there was no fraud or not enough to change the election, that's a good thing, right? No one wants a fraudulent election. However, if there was fraud that could have flipped the result in Arizona, wouldn't you want to know that? I certainly do. Don't you? But keep in mind, again, of those 23,000, apparently only 33% of them were GOP voters. All right. So, the excess votes. So that was the 3,432 number. Sorry about that. I got a little tied up before with all these numbers in my head. So there were 3,432 excess votes that were counted but didn't show up. They were excess votes. But again, if you read the report, there may be an explanation for that. The explanation for that given by Maricopa, and we'll see as this starts to flesh out in the coming days. Again, it's a lot of information, folks. The report is pretty detailed. You may say, how can 3,432 more people vote than show up in the vote tally? Well, the way Arizona explains it is, and there'd be a reason here, if this is accurate, they may have been victims of domestic abuse or judges under protective orders. That seems like a lot of people. I mean, the scale of the problem there would be enormous. So in other words, those voter files are not publicly available. So they're not, in fact, excess votes. They just can't match them up with a voter file because the voter file is hidden. Folks, again, that's what Arizona is telling us, okay? I'm here to give you the facts and the data so you can formulate your own educated opinions. But 3,432, that seems like a lot of judges and a lot of domestic abuse victims. Could be. That's their explanation for that. As I said, here to tell you the truth. As for the 17,000 duplicate ballots, where you had one person who shows up with two ballots, one person who shows up twice in the balloting, Arizona is saying, Maricopa County, 9,000 of those, about 9,041 were cured ballots. In other words, they didn't vote twice. They submitted two ballots. So Guy walks in and votes, right? Doesn't sign it. They call him back. Guy, you didn't sign it. He comes out, fills out a new ballot, and then signs it. But again, that still leaves quite a few more unexplained. Now, having said that, of the 17,000 duplicate ballots, so we have supposedly, according to Maricopa County, we have 9,000 of them explained. Again, that's what they're saying. You formulate your own opinions, okay? Remember, of the 17,000 duplicate ballots, only 30% were GOP ballots. So again, a lot of those people were Democrats. So, we don't know what that was. Was those Democrat voters, GOP voters? Where are the other couple thousand? I'm assuming Arizona will have some explanation for this in the coming days. Then we can analyze it, and I can tell you what I think on it. But I'm giving you this stuff as I ran through it over the weekend. It was a long weekend. Now, I don't know why everybody's running from this audit and panicking, even GOP swamp rats. The Democrats are, because they just don't want you to see what happens in elections and the messes they usually are. But it's interesting. I have a couple book contracts, and written in the book contracts, I can audit the company at any time to make sure I'm getting the royalties right. Why is everybody so panicked about doing an audit of an election? I know what it is. The Democrats don't want you to, even if the fraud isn't enough to overturn the result and say the 2020 election and say convincingly, well, Trump won. Even if that never happened, right? The Democrats still don't want you to see the extent to which our elections are a mess without really good, strong voter ID where it's easy to vote and hard to cheat. That's why this election audit frightens them so much.